As stated previously, while colonization rights around cruel space have long been settled, we do recognize your right to found colonies and the need to expand the borders of human-controlled territory outside of its birth quadrant, if for no other reason than political and commercial expediency. Isel Shrin, ambassador of the Scorra System, says, with a slight hiss as she lets her light pink tongue slither out somewhat. She's a married woman that is bonded deeply and well. While an entire race so endowed with men is still an unimaginable prize, her teasing of the Admiral is just that. Teasing. Scorra 3 and 5 are therefore not open for colonization and will remain nature preserves, in spite of the fact that there is, in fact, no unique form of flora or fauna, life on either Scorra 3 or 5, therefore disqualifying either of them as preserves and classifying them as planetary scale parks instead? Admiral Cistern asks in the small meeting room. The nearest systems to cruel space were Scorra, Anriac, and Bruel, and there were representatives from each, but Ambassador Isil was dominating the conversation. Not unreasonably, as Scorra was the most heavily populated and prosperous system of the three. The smug serpent was the big woman in the room and knew it. Literally as well as figuratively, as her dark green and black striped tail spools over nearly a quarter of the out-of-the-way meeting chamber attached to Admiral Cistern's office. I'm sorry, but it will be very, very difficult to incorporate new settlements into the Scorra system. She apologizes at first. The very soul of manners, as he can make out the slight quirking to her lips. She's enjoying this. She adjusts how she's resting against the table to not smirk at him, letting her impressive assets tip ever so forward to give him a view that he pointedly ignores in favor of doing his job. But Scorra 2 and 4? The Admiral begins pushing from another angle. He can tell that this entire thing is going to try and force him to settle his people into the cities of other races and force them to pay punitive fines if they don't. Anything to get the boys closer to her girls, mostly so she can win her re-election coming up. The woman that brought the booty would no doubt be a borderline system-wide hero and a shoe-in, tail-in for ambassador. Our farming worlds, there is very little room for development, and the carcinogenic gases that would result in a city as primitive as yours, there would damage the crops and could possibly poison a great many people. We have to ensure that our zeal to bring prosperity does not in any way damage the galaxy around us. She simpers, and it's all the Admiral can do not to roll his eyes. A classic coward move to hide behind a potential victim to deflect all blame and justify preventing any change. The environment is a classic scapegoat, as it can't argue back or make political statements of its own. As contemptibly and transparent a move in the weeder galaxy as it is on Earth. Unfortunately, it's likely to work just as well. There's always a sizable part of any voter base that's stupid enough to fall for the scaremongering, and there's enough cowards in the otherwise intelligent part of the voters to tip things in favor of the stupid. The glory of democracy. I see, madam. Admiral Cistern begins before the door to the chambers open, and Philip walks in with a small tea cart that has a small but very fancy Black Forest cake on the top of it, along with a steaming pot of tea and carafe of coffee. Good afternoon, sir. You have all been working hard, and I thought a quick touch of refreshment would serve, Philip says, and Cistern quickly digests the code. Afternoon, not day, meaning there's an event of notice in the last 24 hours. Survey rather than help, meaning that things have gone largely in favor of one side or the other. Of coursey. Thank you, Philip. May I tempt you, ladies? Admiral Cistern offers, and the smiles of all three representatives is all the confirmation he needs. Wonderful. This dear ambassador's is a Black Forest cake. I'm afraid the cause of the name escapes me at the moment, but it's a delightful treat, and pairs well with the blueberry tea. Although I will be serving my good sir a coffee instead, its harshness is more to his personal liking, Philip says as he pulls out the teacups, forks, napkins, and saucers from the second level of the cart. Okay, so something he needs to look into, but not urgent. The good Admiral allows himself a small smile as Philip first cuts the cake into quarters and places the pieces in front of the other ambassadors first. It's a simple message. Whoever served first is being given a consolation prize. All three of these girls hold no benefit. He holds all the advantage. Whatever's happened was very good for humanity. Delicate cups full of blueberry tea are placed in front of each and every other ambassador, and a large mug is filled with coffee for the Admiral. Thank you, Philip. As usual, your timing is exceptional. Thank you, sir. Speaking of timing, this just arrived for you, he says, handing a data pad to Admiral Cistern. He nods to the spy, who gives a slight bow before placing the cart to rest beside the door, but out of the way and walking out after another slight bow. Oh, this is delightful. This was made on Earth? Ambassador Isil asks. She's already finished half of her own and has half the remaining half balanced on her fork. Oh no. The ingredients are from Earth, but they're preserved and then prepared on the Dauntless. The cake is quite fresh, Admiral Cistern says as he takes a sip of his coffee and examines the datapad. His eyebrows go up, and he has to repress a chuckle before putting it to the side. Good news? Ambassador Isil asks, and he nods. Yes. One of my men has apparently been waiting for just this moment and has found himself married. I'll have to put together a gift basket for the couple. Just one? The ambassador of Bruel asks, standing on her chair to properly reach the table in a failed attempt to hold the same sort of gravitas as the rest of the representatives. The gob woman, Nikti Tal, is dressed in a formal suit with skirt, but also has bone jewelry that seems to be hand-carved. It has not been lost on Admiral Cistern that both of the other representatives have been dismissive of the little lady. Perhaps that will be of use. She was apparently alone in her endeavors. Admiral Cistern says, double-checking the datapad. Heh, she better appreciate it fast, because I'll bet hard credits that everyone that knows her will muscle in as hard as they can, Nikti says with a throaty chuckle. Yet until then, I wish them all the best. After that, they will likely need all the luck. Cistern notes, and there's polite laughter. Something draws the attention of Ambassador Isel, and she sighs. Is something the matter? Representative Lydie Rhett asks. She is a representative of the research firm in control of the Anriac system. It has several worlds deep in extremes, an ice-covered planet, a molten world, and 2 deserts, with atmosphere but no biosphere, meaning that the air is stale and poisonous. Just that my attention is needed elsewhere. Admiral Cistern, you know my conditions. You have my contact information. I look forward to your request to immigrate human citizens to Scorra, she says as she finishes off the last of her tea and leaves at a stately slither. I do apologize if this is a question from ignorance, but are all Nagasha so self-assured? Admiral Cistern asks after the door closes behind her. Only the high-ranking ones. There are so many completely stable variants of the Nagasha that they go everywhere along the spectrum, Representative Liddy says with a slight smile as she dabs her lips. The Canador is a very intimidating sight despite her academic nature. Her behavior and manner of dress in a human woman would show a mousy, unassuming wallflower. On a Canador, she was both terrifying and sultry, with a hint of nerd from her glasses and lab coat. The fact that she was 9 feet tall, had over 100 razor-sharp teeth, and had eaten the cake in a single bite was concerning. Your treats are as delicious as your presence, Admiral. Still, we're done with that stuffy Nagasha, so let's get down to business, the lion shark woman says, leaning over, giving Admiral Cistern a deep view of her assets. I've been empowered by Canad Solutions to secede control of Anriac 4 to you. Rather generous of you, madam, Admiral Cistern says and is cut off when Ambassador Nikti snorts loudly. It's a big hunk of rock with poison air around it. Even better, it's got a twin in Anriac 2. The others in the system are a chunk of ice and a ball of lava. It's all a weapon testing and manufacturing facility, the tiny ambassador says, and there's a flash of annoyance across Representative Leedy's face. Admiral Cistern braces himself to jump and potentially shield the tiny woman from the massive predator, then relaxes as the larger woman smiles. Yes. I'm afraid my adorable little friend here is correct. It's more than generosity fueling this gift, she admits after patting the tiny gob on the head and earning a simmering glare. When it comes to 3 or more worlds, buying the license for an entire system is generally cheaper. Yet in this case, one of the 4 worlds wasn't really worth the cost. It is, as our little friend here has stated, a ball of rock and a poisonous atmosphere, one that's a nearly perfect replica of its twin in the system. It will be of use to you in your own research and development, no doubt, but it will not make a colony. Regardless of what use it is, the gift of an entire world is not a small one. You have my deepest gratitude for such astounding generosity. Oh, don't go making me blush, I'm married. Really, this is to both of our benefits. We can claim this for a massive tax break. This gift is paying for itself twice over, Letty says as she tips back the entire cup of tea in her mouth and audibly sloshes it before swallowing. Oh, this is delightful. I can't wait to try some of your race's other dishes. A fair warning, madam. A great deal of our food is made with spices that can prove quite lethal outside our own kind. I heard about that. Oh, I laughed good and hard hearing about that silly Tret nearly getting her tongue destroyed by flame then ice. Luckily for me, Canador are one of the more resilient races the galaxy over. I can digest capsaicin just fine, Leidy assures him. Giant walking trash compactor. Ambassador Nicty mutters, and Admiral Cistern's eyes widen. Being called out on bullshit is one thing, outright insulted is another. Yet the gigantic predator seems to find this outburst even more amusing than the last. Oh, the teeny growl is just so cute, Leidy gushes as she kisses Ambassador Nicty on the top of the head like a favored pet. Anyways, I'll be heading out to formalize the paperwork for the transfer. Development and mineral rights of the world are yours, for what good it does. I'm afraid it's more symbolic than anything else. But deeply appreciated regardless, madam. Thank you. Truly. If you want to thank me, then you'll let my daughters visit your wonderful vessel and find what they need to get started on my granddaughters. The gigantic predator says, standing up and looming over the entire room. Madam, the Dauntless is a military vessel and ambassadorial headquarters. I'm afraid it's not a market for men. Oh, I know. You ambassador types are stuffy the galaxy over, even with a new species. Liddy grumps somewhat before reaching over to pat Admiral Cistern on the head. Still plenty adorable to hear a man growl at you, though, like you're going to actually do something. Ta-ta, darling. She gushes at him before stalking out of the room with a flick of her tail, nearly knocking off Cistern's hat. A few moments of readjustment and he's regained his composure. Yes, all Canador are like that. If you're a threat, then you're one of them. If you're not, then you're a helpless child to be protected and matronized. Ambassador Nicty spits out. I see. Now then, I'm sorry for the other two interrupting so much, but we never got to your system. That's just the way this galaxy works, big loud bitches talking over everyone else. The bitter ambassador spits. It's just you and me now, madam. You have my undivided attention. He assures the rumpled and insulted Gobe. She snorts and glares at him sullenly. What do you want with me and mine anyways? You're looking to set up a colony or city, and all I've got is one planet around an out-of-the-way system. We're the armpit of the galaxy, a big stinky world dripping in heat and moisture, dank, damp, and down in the dumps. Our major exports are narcotics brewed from local plant life. They don't sell well enough for serious profit, and no one wants to visit a planet too warm for most races. Even the Nagasha don't like it there. Yet, I have numerous soldiers who would describe your 60 to 80% humidity and 20 to 30 degree weather as home. In fact, those temperatures match one of the most densely populated countries on Earth, one that is routinely visited for its natural beauty. It is much like many of the countries around the equator that aren't deserts. Really? And say I let you guys have one of the continents. Would you obey the laws of the world and beyond men? What would you bring to Bruel? So long as you allow us to establish local bylaw, we will abide by planetary law. So long as Bruel is not an arrangement system. It's not, don't worry. Though why you have a problem with that, I'll never know. The idea of trying to keep one woman happy is a daunting task in my mind. 100 sounds like a punishment handed down by a sadistic god. Admiral Cistern says flatly, and for a moment, Nicty just stares at him. Then she breaks out into heavy laughter. She has to brace herself against the table in order to keep from falling off her chair as she doubles over in laughter. Admiral Cistern, for his part, simply sips at his coffee and waits patiently for the hysteria to subside. Oh, that's a good one. I've lost all doubt that you come from a race where men are as common as dirt. I'm glad one of us is amused by all this. Oh, relax, big man. Relax. You're fine. We got room. There are 2 megacontinents and a smaller one almost smooshed in the middle on Bruel. The smaller one is sparsely developed, mostly because it's only got a single mountain range on them. That's what we use for spaceports and where most of the cities are. You can have that one. It can be under your laws, but the main laws of the world are no killing without good cause and keep your hands to your own things. Standard galactic policy, just enforced by those that most of the galaxy think they need these rules enforced on. That's perfect. Admiral Cistern says as he examines the datapad that he was brought earlier. It's not just a report on what his men had gotten up to, but pertinent information and suggestions for the 3 systems. Bruel's notes are some of the more practical. How would you feel about farms being set up? What kind of farms? To start, how about cocoa trees, sugarcane, and rice stalks? If you're curious, cocoa and sugar were major ingredients in the cake you just ate, and rice is a staple grain. Mass-producible and usable in an enormous amount of dishes. It also preserves almost perpetually when dried. All 3 of these major crops can be grown en masse on Bruel, Admiral Cistern explains, and she just stares at him for a bit. Is something the matter? A farming outpost? Nikti asks, as if stunned. Why not? We'll need people to work those farms, you have the land, and we have a need to get humans out of cruel space. This is practically the definition of mutual benefit. You want to set up a legal farming outpost with exotic but dependable goods? Nikti clarifies in a still stunned tone. Yes, it. I don't get you, she barks out, and his eyebrows go up somewhat. You were more slippery than the snake when she was here. Gracious to that matronizing whore when she was flaunting those giant teeth of hers, but you deal straight and true with me. Me? What's your game? No game. Or rather, there's no game with you. Ambassador Isil was being a slippery sort and trying to trick me, so I gave her nothing but platitudes until she left. Representative Liddy was looking to profit and look good, so I let her do it as she was in no way hurting me or mine. But you are willing to speak fairly, and you're trying to better yourself and your people, but not at the detriment of mine. That is something I can really work with. The smile he gets in return tells him that the deal is as good as sealed. Respect and courtesy are high-value coin to those who receive little of it.